What's up, everybody? It's Brad Montgomery. I've missed you. How the heck are you? Well, after a little bit of fun time and some crazy busyness on the road, I'm back recording a really fun podcast with somebody I was lucky to meet because I worked with her. She is a really fancy meeting planner. Like, when I say fancy meeting planner, we're saying fancy meeting planner. She's also an association executive. She has her own association management company. So what you should be thinking is, I don't even know what those words are. Meeting planner, association management. We're about to find out. Welcome to your screen. We got Jennifer Hasten. Jennifer, thanks for saying yes.
Hi, Brad. Sure thing.
I am so glad you're here. I've been wanting to do this for so long, and thanks for working it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So one of my first questions is always, when you meet people at a barbecue and they say, so what do you do, Jennifer? How do you answer that question to a muggle, to someone outside of your industry?
Honestly, we answer it in a variety of ways. Depends on the setting. The barbecue, I'd probably let them know I heard cats. That's the best way to explain it. Yeah, jokingly. We set the conversation to, as an association management person or company, and help nonprofits work there every day to day, and on top of that, as a corporate meeting planner.
Well, let's start with the associations. As a speaker, my clients are, half of them are associations, and when I'm talking to my friends at barbecues, they're stunned that many associations exist and how niche they are, and that that it's a whole hidden world. So can you tell us a little bit about what does that mean when you say association management company? Who are you managing, and what associations need help?
All associations. So mostly our association management company is an outsourced model. So we could help with books, day-to-day books, if that's what they need help with. We all know we're all in a labor pinch these days. So having people, a variety of people, help with the outsourcing piece that any particular association, nonprofit, trade association, as you said, the niches are there, with whatever they need help with. So it's a matter of the conversations, having the conversations with them to say, what is it? And sometimes it's just housing and registration that they need help with set up. So it could be as simple as that. And we have several associations that we do the whole day to day. So we have people assigned to that particular association. That is their staff for that association. So that's memberships, that's everything that they would need help on in running their association.
Well, am I right, Jennifer? It feels to me like associations have two leadership tracks. One of them is the volunteers, the members of the association. They're going to have a president and a board. But they need a pro person who's going to be there every year. That's you, right? You're the pro person.
It could be, yeah, essentially. So, some associations I'll say this, most associations are run like corporations if they're run correctly. So in that regard, you look at it as, depending on the association, how is the structure set up? So It could be an executive board answers to a volunteer, or, the volunteer board that is what we call a working board, which is what they do the day in and day out. And with people's time schedules these days, we're finding it, associations are finding it hard to get those volunteers to be committed to do the day-to-day. So it varies, again, from group to group.
Well, I have a confession to make. As a guy who works with associations, it's always the association executive I want to talk to. Often they want me to talk to the board president or something like that.
Sure.
But the board president is not used to running meetings, and it's always the executive that I want. Does that make me evil? Am I a bad person for that?
No. You're trying to get to the decision maker. But again, I would ask who that person is on or in that association. So sometimes it could be the AMC, who that board president just diverts the day-to-day decision making to say, hey, are we doing this or not doing this?
Right.
And then, back and forth. Now, every association, mostly wants that president to be the face which I in turn liken it to a lot of what we call PIO, so public information officer. They are the face of the organization. And that could be the executive director, the board president, however they're, again, set up in their structure.
Can you give an example of the types of associations you're representing? Because my experience has been most people don't know there are associations for these niched areas.
So yeah, we handle a large education association that has over 8,500 attendees at their conference. That's
Whoa.
one. We handle a lot of law enforcement associations, who again are mostly all volunteer boards. So we do them. I have a lot of agriculture associations that need help. So I have an array.
Yeah, you do have an array. Well, let's switch. You've got two hats. Not really. For people who can see Jennifer, she has exactly 0 hats. You run associations, but you're also a corporate meeting planner. Can you tell us what that means?
Sure. So on the side of Global Source, I run their meeting management and housing and reg for them, and mostly again for the corporations or incentive pieces of business that we do, for which I believe you had on earlier, Miss Patty. So that I oversee that for her, from again the years of what I've done, and I've been in this industry a long time. So yeah, that's what I do on that side, and that's the fun side. Those are the nice budgets and the hey, we need this to look like this, and the product launches. Those are the cool things I get to do.
Well, all right. So give us a sample of how big these meetings are, because we're not talking about 30 people in a boardroom. When you're involved as a meeting planner, it's big, and the dollars are big, and the stakes are high. Talk a little bit about that.
So yeah, I mean, again, those gosh are a wide range. Again, upwards 10,000 people. That's probably the largest one I've done. 10,000, almost 11,000 on that side, and the budgets, again, it just goes back to, when things are good, things are great for us on our side. We get to play with all the production pieces. We get to have fun gifts sent, nice transportation, all the things that come with, the behind the scenes. People on the outside looking in,
right,
think it is a party, and it's really, there's a lot of logistics and planning that do go into the backside of it, and it can be very stressful. We bring to the table, to executives, either on the association side or the corporate side, the expertise that should have thought out and planned the what ifs. Right. I'm a big proponent of liability and asking, what does it look like, and is it smart for us to do X, Y, Z? So I think that's, if I could, stress that to anybody, that's probably the most, stressful piece. And then working with making sure that.
Back up on one. You passed over something that was big. I don't know exactly though what you mean, Patty. Or I called you Patty, Jennifer. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. As far as what you don't know what I mean as far as what?
Well, you were talking about sometimes you need to coach people on what's important, and you were going fast, but I know for many of us who were not in your job, I'm not sure we're following you.
So I think it goes back, coaching in the regard of asking the what if questions. So yes, I hear you, Executive A, you want to do this, but what if this? What if this happens? Or what if that happens? Though that's where our planning and strategy comes in. But it's also working with all of the other stakeholders that have the same questions, which could be marketing. It could be the on-site production group, right? I see that you want to do it this way, but really our stuff that we have on hand can only do it this way. So if we're going to do it your way, we've got to go get these things, right? And then how does it play back into, like, everything has a domino effect. So you have to ask, and you have to have the right people in the room to make sure everybody has their say, and coming together. So, I want to stress to people that as much as it looks like a party when you get there and you just show up and it happens, a lot of planning it took behind the scenes to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I work, you know that I work with a lot of meeting planners, and it does feel like you guys are having fun because you're at the Ritz-Carlton and you're at fancy dinners and you're a decision maker. So whenever you say anything to the hotel, they jump on it and they bring you whatever you need. But that's kind of how it looks. But I think it's just an exhausting, whatever. If it's a 4-day conference, there's no sleeping and there's 1,000 problems you're solving.
Absolutely. I mean, it's early mornings. I mean, we're there, oftentimes 6:30. If a show starts at 8, so we're there, almost an hour and a half, 2 hours prior to everybody showing up, making sure, hopefully, because we are so reliant on other people. So making sure that that banquet captain showed up to get his people in order to get the food out for the people, right? So, that's all the junior stuff that comes along with it. But in the evening time, then, you're also the point person to jump ahead. And if there's a networking event or some evening event off site, you've got to be that forward person or have people in place that are the forward people that make it happen, and get it going and end it. And then you can go to bed and wake up and do it again.
I know the answer to the question I'm about to ask you because you and I were on the same panel, or I was hosting a panel where you were the star. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this? No little boy or no little girl grows up and says, I hope I'm in corporate meeting planning, right? I hope I'm in association management. How did you end up here?
I don't know that I got to tell the full story on that panel. But I was going to be a police officer, bottom line. And, and I ended up here. So, at going through the police academy, I was dating a police officer and they had a nepotism rule. And at that time, so they told me I could no longer, it was either he or I. He'd already been on several years, so that wasn't fair. So they said, however, you can, quit out of the process basically, and we have a spot over here for you at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. And then the rest is history. So I went to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then filled the rest of the way in my career here.
All right, I'm dying to ask. All right, is that person still in your life?
He is, yeah.
You married him?
I did.
I'm so happy. All I can think of is, what if she changes her career of choice for some guy who is the wrong guy?
Nope, he was the right guy for sure. And then, yeah, but my schooling was in criminal justice. So it's still of interest to me, but it wasn't my chosen career path. And honestly, I am where I need to be. I'm an extrovert, and I'm probably one that doesn't need to carry a gun. I'll just say it out there for everybody. And then anybody who knows me knows probably not a good idea. I can't even shoot.
Well, I'm just trying. That would be a scary meeting planner. The AV team says, we got to get this fast. Why? Because she's armed. We're afraid of her.
No, it shouldn't be that way at all.
Well, though, I got to say that one of the things I love about pro meeting planners is you guys are tough. Can you speak to that? Because here's what I mean. For example, often when I'm on site with a client, if the audio visual is wrong or the staging is wrong, I'm in a sort of an awkward spot because I'm the hired help. And I'm trying to get what I need to do the job I was hired to do, but also I'm trying not to be a pain in the neck. If I'm able to get help from a pro meeting planner, I'm always struck with how tough you guys are, because you just walk right up there and say, I need this now, and it's done. You guys need to be kind and have a good relationship, but you also have to be tough. Am I reading that right?
Somewhat, because again, I'll say, Brad, that the behind the scenes and all the preparation leading to this, those conversations were had. Now, whether they were had from I hate to pick on the AV guys because oftentimes those are the guys that get,
Yeah. Sometimes they deserve it.
And again, I think communication falls short. And that regard of, we have been in the meetings, we have set the expectations. Whether that got filtered down to the boots on the ground probably didn't happen. So our abrasiveness, for lack of a better word, in those instances is because we talked about it ahead of time, and most oftentimes, Brad, we've done a run through prior to. So that's where we should have worked out some of those bugs. And so when we get there on the day, that's the last frustrating thing we want to deal with, is something we've already been over, maybe 2-3 times.
Yeah.
So that we can get a little abrasive. But sometimes it's like, our kids too, right? Like the word, I'm not going to, use the curse word, but you have made me lose my, now you heard what I said, right? So that's how I often treat them like they're children. Like everything was going good until this just happened because we've already been through it.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah. But anyways, I also want to follow that up by saying, we get more bees with honey. So 2, we can ask nicely 1-2 times, but again, after that, all bets are off.
Yeah.
And you do have to have that tough skin to say, because it won't get done otherwise, or we're doing it ourselves, which again, I think goes back to a good planner type who's not afraid to get in there, get dirty, and just get it done, no matter how it gets done, or find those that can get it done for you,
Right.
and be willing to turn on a dime in order to get it done.
Well, this is about you, but allow me to ask you a question about me, because I think it'll not only be instructive to the audience, but it'll help us understand you better. When I get to a big meeting, often everything's been done perfectly. The meeting planners have got all the information to the right people. Sometimes there's even been sound checks or whatever. But when I get there, I'm telling you 40% of the time it's wrong. Meaning the poor person who set that room or does not know that Brad needed that one thing. And I'm left with a problem because, especially if my meeting planners are not professional full-time meeting planners, they don't understand the complexity of it. And I'm eager not to come off as a prima donna and somebody who needs something that's out of line. So I'm trying to please my client and show my client that I'm easygoing. I'm trying to get what is reasonable and what we ask for. What advice do you have for the honey versus, we get more flies with honey? Sometimes, we need the crew. I need the crew to love me. I need the crew to trust me, because they need to know I'm going to not make them look foolish. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I want to yell at them. How do you balance that?
I would say understanding kind of who the players are on site. And oftentimes there's usually more than one, Brad. I'll say that. There always, again, has to be a contingency somewhat. Let's say that actual meeting planner, God forbid, gets sick or misses a flight or doesn't get there. There has to be a team, maybe 2, sometimes 3 people that are aware of what's to happen. So having circled in those people ahead of time with any requirements you have, whether it be a list or a special lighting request, a special microphone, whatever that list is, making sure not just one person knows it. Because again, I think there's communication breakdown in all avenues. Honestly, I mean, we make mistakes for sure, or in our opinion, this thing might have been overlooked because that's already always there, right? That could be just an understood, but we can't assume. Right. We all know what happens when we do that. So I would say, for you, in preparation for making sure that not just one person knows, who else is on your team, just making the relationship company-wide, which I think you do a good job at, by the way.
Aw.
I do.
But this will not surprise you, Jennifer, that I send my audiovisual needs to my meeting planner. I have them send it to the venue, the hotel, or the AV crew. And then someone from my office follows up with the AV crew to make sure they got it and there's any questions. But still, 40% of the time, the people setting the room did not get it. So I've got as many people involved as I can.
So let me ask you this: that AV crew, who someone from your team has set that up, is there and from firsthand experience, let me say this: I want to introduce my speakers to the AV people. I want them to connect, and I want them to say, "Do you have everything you need when you get there?" That's my preference, and I call it, again, I go back to a run through, run a show, whatever it is that it looks like. I want to have that, but I also want you to put a face to a person that's actually running that slide
Yeah.
deck in the back, or running the sound up and down. If something goes array, what do I do next? I grab a handheld because my log just went out. Those things. So I think having you have the face with that person, because now there's some accountability there. In that regard, and maybe you feel more comfortable. But you'd be surprised how many people that are going to give presentations just show up and think
No,
it's going
that
to
doesn't surprise me.
yeah. Honestly, I just went through it.
Oh,
And I'm like, where are these people? So I know now too, I have to put things in place to say, you must meet me at XYZ at Reg Desk, or wherever it is the meeting place becomes, to say, I need to take you and walk you to this person, and you guys
right. Well,
do your.
tell us what happened. You said you had a presentation, a presenter who showed up late or whatever. What does that look like?
It's a cycle of presentations, and they just assume that they sent their presentation ahead of time, which we had and which we turn in. But I also want it on a USB stick, to have something physical, to introduce people to, and kind of just do that run through. So if they don't show up for a run through, then I've got to do some pre-work to get everybody to those AV people, and it could be sometimes, Brad, like it's 20 minutes beforehand, but I need them to go back to the AV booth before they get on for the next guy and say, click this, make sure these links work, and do your thing before he gets up there.
I'm sorry you have to deal with that. I know meeting planners have told me. I've been the MC for a big corporate event, and the people I'm introducing are not in the room 15 minutes before they're supposed to go up. And then poor meeting planner is having a cow. So now in my contracts, it's fairly common to see you will be in the room 90 minutes early saying hello to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Where we are.
That seems like a fairly obvious thing. Maybe you should show up more than 15 minutes early or whatever. Well, let's talk. My favorite topic always is what happens when it goes wrong. And I know good meeting planners, and I'm assuming good association executives, things are going wrong all the time. And what makes you so good is we don't know anything's going wrong, but lots is going wrong. Do you have any examples of when things just went totally awry and you're like, I gotta fix this?
I think more so, you when things go wrong in the sense of the behind the scenes, there's always something going wrong, or wrong in the sense of it's not going the way we talked about, or it's not going my way that I would prefer it to go, or those types of things. Wrong in the sense of where I should ask that back to you, in the sense of everybody knew something has happened, and how did we deal with it? Or wrong in the sense of, wow, that stunk. The transportation just broke down. I've got to bail everybody off this bus.
Right.
And they get back to the convention. You're not going to believe what happened to us, kind of thing. So, I've had both instances, and one, in general, which wasn't good, is, and if you're doing this as long as I'm doing this, it will inevitably happen to you. And that's a death on site of an attendee. And if you have your people in place, and your crisis risk management in place, then you follow that script, and there's a script for it. And again, a lot of people, when you show up, you have no idea that that's in place, and we should go through it, and we should know it, and who's the point person. Those are there, and so that's Those are the things that we have in place for when that instance happens, because then everybody is aware. And in this particular instance, it involved having to get counselors from the local area, drive in from, we're in Texas, so it happened in Texas, and we drove in from, they drove in from Dallas area, like all the different areas, because all of a sudden we have to set up counseling rooms, for these folks, and notify, next of kin and that type of thing, and just have the things in place of that people again wouldn't think, or to have to handle. So I think we do, and of course insurance companies are then involved, so you got to call in all those folks, and so it's having that play-by-play, a playbook, if you will, to hit that crisis management plan and follow it to the T. And that goes until to say there's PIO people that only do that speaking, and here's what happened, and here's what we know, and here's how we're handling it. And the show goes on. So, sadly, it does not the way we intended it to go on, and we're not discounting what happened, and we're not offering services that we need to offer. But that's one of my, I guess, horror stories.
How often does that happen? I sense for you that's happened more than once.
2 times in my 22 years.
Man, I just can't imagine.
More than once, and too many.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't.
I can't imagine. So everyone knows there's this tragedy, and then, assuming the show must go on, you're like, all right, here's our next presenter, or now we're gonna have lunch. Such a massive disconnect to get people's mood up. It goes way down. Try to recover it. That sounds brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is, but in the sense of too understanding, the effect and affect of what should happen following something like that is not to dwell, and that we're not trying to be insensitive, but and I also, in the conversations following that of the next of kin who you have to notify, they would want that, and they would say that person would want that. They, no one wants to be that type of center of attention, for sure. So I think, normalcy is not a good word. You don't return to normal. You just move forward, and not move on, but you move forward in what we're doing. So
I remember about a month after 9/11, 2001, and the meeting industry started up slowly, right? Everybody in my world, because one of my jobs is to be funny, was freaking out, calling each other like, how are we possibly going to tell a joke on a stage after this national crisis? And for some reason, talking about a death in the room just sounds similar. Like, how do you go forward and say, we're having a party, or we're having dinner, or here's a speaker? How do you do that and respect what's going on and still try to move forward? I got some ideas about that because of 9/11. Have you seen that done well? And have you seen it done poorly? Where there's bad news and you try to recover?
I don't know that. I only know from my experience how it was handled from our aspect. I've not seen, there's been times I've been to a meeting and I've heard that something's happened. So I don't necessarily think that, from a regard of, here's a big announcement, unless the people that saw it were in a hallway or something like that. Oftentimes when I've been attending a meeting, and possibly there's a death, or the rumor is somebody passed away, or somebody fell down the escalator and split their head open and the ambulance came. There's usually always something you hear as an attendee handling that. And I don't ever think that, I think that meeting planner or that organizer should have announced it to everybody, that or addressed it. I don't think there's that. In our instance, what we had to do, because it was an education event, and we gathered what we call sponsors of all of the entire delegation. So, which is about 200 or 300 people, and explained to them what had happened, allowed them to make the choice whether they stayed or whether they left. without any, repercussions, or, did you need a refund, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Allowed them to have some decision making in the process on how they think their particular delegation would have handled it more closely. So I think for me, if you're in that type of situation, that was a good way to handle it. And I have to give it to, it wasn't me just making that decision. It was, again, that crisis management team, which is part of the executive director, and them having the wherewithal to understand what to do and how their delegation would best react. So I think if you know your audience, you're going to know what to do. And that's already up in your crisis management plan, which everybody should have. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. Here's my approach is if everybody knows. So if everybody knows that the beloved founder Earl just died, it feels weird to just kind of go on and talk about future business and how do we do sales. And here's here's what you need to know about your healthcare or whatever we're talking about. Or a keynote speaker coming up saying, here's how to be a better you. So for me, it's just been important to say, this is kind of weird. Mm-hmm. And let everyone say, yeah, it is weird. And then what I've done in the past, it's worked really well, which I wish I came up with, Jennifer, but I didn't. It's just to say, let's leave, like, this is not being disrespectful, but would you like to just go on? And even if we make if I make you laugh and you smile, can we agree that wouldn't be disrespectful? It would just be something we all need as humans to maybe process this. Do you guys want to just go forward and try it that way? And I just ask them. And of course they're going to go, oh yeah, because this is really heavy. It feels horrible. Mm-hmm. Spending X number of minutes not thinking about it. Sounds okay. And once you have their permission to say, can we do this without disrespecting Earl or whoever died or whatever horrible thing happened? It feels like the game's on again. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's right. And I think, again, that's you trying to understand the audience you're looking at or talking to, right? Asking permission is a fantastic idea. I think it's
buy-in, baby. The magic of buy-in.
Right. Well, and two, those that aren't will leave, right? They'll just get up and be like, I got to get out of here. This is not right.
Right. If this is too weird for you, then they voted to go on, but we love you.
Agreed.
Do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell me when you tell your friends, so you come home from work and it's your, is it your husband's a police officer? What's his job title?
He is. He's retired now. So he retired as a sergeant from a municipal.
All right. So you come home from work or come home from a conference and you say, hey, honey bunch, my ex-sergeant, really good day. Really good day. What does a good day for you look like? What happens to make you say, I love my job?
It's when, I guess, the day-to-day is the day-to-day. So oftentimes it's prepping for the next event. For me, I just got through 2 large events. So my whole spring was spent prepping for July and August. And I literally just wrapped up this past weekend. And those are, I like looking back and saying, okay, we did it again. That's great. Another year. But already we're prepping, for next year. So then it's me saying, writing up the fixes, getting the board involvement to say, hey, here's the fixes we notice we need to do. What are your ideas? Let's put them on this document. We'll have a call on XYZ date. So for me, those right now, these days, this week, this time that I get to do this with you is honestly a good day because it's not my usual. It's the things that break up the day, if you will. And now that we, having conversations with the team, I love getting them together and all bouncing ideas off one another. Those are good days that I like and enjoy. So
yeah, that doesn't surprise me that you would mention that collaboration portion.
Creativity too, is thrives me with the team.
Well,
to get there.
I just heard a tiny little compliment in there. You said, this is fun because it's not your usual. That's my name, Brad. Not my usual. Montgomery. So I'm glad I could serve.
With the hair flip.
You've been so generous with your time. I ask every guest a couple of questions, and I'm about to lay them on you. You might remember that as a keynote speaker, my expertise is social and emotional support, which often means mentoring and coaching and letting people know they're important and projecting warmth. No one, in my experience, gets to the high level you are without having people on your team. If I say, Jennifer, who encouraged you? Who comes to mind?
For me, well, I'm gonna go way back. So I started working when I was 14 years old, right? Now that's foreign to a lot of people, but at 14, you start young and you work through. But I'll say at 18, I had a job at a jewelry store where I grew up, and my manager there, and I'll give his name, Gary Mariano. I've never found him again. Don't know where he is. I know he was originally from up northeast somewhere, but he he had this way of seeing potential, and he gave me my first managerial job in duty at 18 years old. And I thought I was the cat's meow, at 18, and I was gonna go open all these jewelry stores and do all these things. But it was because he saw potential um, in me, and I think it was a boost in my in me, right?
Mm.
In my capabilities and my abilities. So with that, I was able to expound on it and thought I have to always achieve and do better and do better and do better. But I think it was because of him seeing that and giving me those opportunities that I just took it and ran with it. So I think he would be my encourager.
Oh, what did that look like when he encouraged you? Do you remember him saying, "Jennifer, I see potential in you," or was it just through his actions, or how did that work?
I think it was just, I showed up day to day, right? And then I did extra. I just was like, oh, I can do that. Or, I know a lot of people that do that today. It's like, oh, I can take that on, or I can take that on. Then as you do that when you're young and you're energetic and you can do all the things, right? There's no stopping you, nothing. And he allowed it, but to a point to say, no, whoa, here, let's go this way, and guided that energy to where it wasn't a burnout,
Right.
and guided me in that sense of giving me the word, I don't even know why it's in a common word, the self-esteem to to be who I am,
Right.
and then be able to, now I look back and think, oh, I do this probably because of him when with my own team, right? Like I recognize things that I probably ordinarily wouldn't recognize.
Well, give us an example. What is one of those things you do with your current team that you feel like might have been an imprint from when you were 18?
I think it goes back to, I do have team members that are so motivated and just want to do all the things. And I have to say, as much as I would love to delegate or take, be able to look at this team member and say, they have too much and I can give it to this one because I know it'll get done like that. But I have to stop myself and say, no, I need to tell them, slow down. You don't need to take on all this. It's let them handle it. It might not get done the way you need it to get done when you need it to get done. But it's not affecting or impacting anything that they're working on. So to allow them to take a minute and breathe. And I think they appreciate that, from what I see. I'm always asking for feedback. And I think it's important because I'm not second guessing, me, myself, or how I'm leading. What I do though is I want to make sure there's a culture of happiness and balance that they all look for and do in order for them to do a good job. Because I think we can get overwhelmed and just so bogged down that people will give up, and I've seen that in both worlds coming up so long, working in different types of industries and jobs, and with boards, quite frankly,
Right.
looking at, the burnout impact. And so that's a big focus of mine for that. And again, I go back to, I feel like that was because of Mr. Mariano, who was that way with me. And I can think, okay, A, potential, look for potential. B, manage the potential.
Am I, by the way, am I oversimplifying it by saying that he treated you with respect as a very young adult?
Oh,
And
no.
that's one of the things that really, you felt that, and that helped push you forward.
Yeah, respect respect in the regard that as a young girl, I mean, at 18, I was a girl. Let's just be real. I mean, I might have been an adult in policies, but I was a girl. And I'll never forget. He always said to me, and I think maybe this is what struck a chord. He grew up with, I think, maybe 5 sisters. He always told me about all his sisters. So he was, the only boy in this family. So he understood our perspective, when we are dramatic and raging and all the things that young girls do. You yourself probably know this. You have daughters, I believe, if I recall.
Yes.
But to that point of, I mean, we're a lot. And at that age, we're a lot. But he really understood. And again, I think it just goes back to him being able to relay and see potential in that respectful way, for sure. Yeah, I appreciate it.
So it sounds to me, when you started this, you said you had looked for him, but he's vanished to the East Coast or something. I know he would just melt if he could hear you.
Maybe.
Oh, come on. He would love this.
Possibly. I am not on social media, so that back when I first was on it, excuse me, I'd look him up. I don't know if he's who he is or whatever, but I didn't look super hard, but I'm sure he's still out there. I don't even know how old he might be right now, but if anybody knows Gary Mariano, yeah.
Well, I love this, that he made a mark on you and made a massive impression, and that you in turn are passing that on to your younger team members. Well done, you.
Hopefully.
I love those stories.
Legacy.
All right. We are at that place. I'm so grateful for your time. We have Jennifer Hasten, who is a rock star association management company owner. She's a fancy pants. Is that a phrase we can use? Fancy pants corporate meeting planner. The world is bonkers right now. What gives you hope?
Honestly, I have hope in humanity in that of itself. We are bombarded media-wise with just ick, like you said in your note to me of the noise. And I've turned off the noise since 2020. I can't do it. And so for me, I find that most people just want to do the right thing. It doesn't matter who they are. They really do. And they're kind. But I think when we focus on or hear or surround ourselves with what's being spread, because we're such a social folk now, right? We've never, back in our day, we didn't have those things. But our world is that way, and it's just media, and all avenues and always connected. I really think when we turn off the noise, humanity is good and kind. You don't necessarily always have to seek it. It is there if you just look and be still. So honestly, humanity, because that's who I find myself around, are the people that are kind.
Yeah.
And that's who I want to, surround myself with, and find the really good ones to emulate. Always happy and excited, and I love that about you.
Aw. It's funny. I love that answer, because humanity is such a vague answer, but I think it's also something I really relate to, because I'm like, Jennifer. I was talking to my wife recently about this, and we were talking about, it's a country divided. Are we fighting about this or that? Or it just feels like we're fighting. Half the people are mad at the other half. But I was saying, if you look at this group of people, if we needed help, like we fell or we just, I don't know, we're at the side of the road and we desperately need help, I think everybody here would help. Their humanity is they're good people, even though we're arguing about maybe things that hopefully are not as important as we think.
Correct. When there is, again, it goes back to crisis, right? When there is a crisis, I do believe that people are like, no, whatever, well, let's do this to get through this type.
Yeah.
So and that's what I look for. I don't look at beliefs or those things. I don't dive into that type, right? I think we're all just making the best of what we have here, and well, we should be, for sure. That's my motto. Any day on this side of the dirt is a great day. So, and anytime anybody asks me that, that's my answer, because it is. We should be thankful for that.
Mic drop. You're a smart person. No wonder you're so successful.
I try.
Jennifer Hasten, how do we find you? What's the name of your association management company?
Oh, thanks, Brad. Times 10 Association Strategies. So we're at www.times10as.com.
times10as.com.
Correct.
Well, I'm telling you, if you're running an association and you're feeling like your hair's on fire and you want a pro, come on, it's Jennifer. Call her.
Thanks, Brad.
Everybody, I'm so glad you're here. The podcast is called Successful, Interesting, and Awesome, and I think we all agree Jennifer Hasten is successful, interesting, and awesome. Jennifer, hold on with me. Everybody, be good to each other. Talk to you soon.